Ladies and gentlemen, welcome in to the Bama Standard. We've been very busy here as of late with good reason, and you're seeing a lot of us. And hey, you love us. You come here because we're the number one source for Alabama content. Before we get started, go ahead, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. If you're in the live chat, do your thing. Just go crazy because I'm sure you have been today with the announcement of a lot of moves from the roster, a lot of moves from the coaching staff. We'll get to all that. If you're watching the replay, get in the comment section. Show us love there. As always, we're brought to you by Workspace Solutions. Matter of fact, Workspace Solutions is here today. If your business needs a digital presence or full-fledged marketing team, they are the guys to coach you up. Visit them at workspacepros.com today, just not during the show. I'm Justin Riley, host of the Bama Standard, and I got an all-star crew with me right now to talk about Kalen DeBoer's first press conference. I'll start out with the illustrious Daniel Pettey from Week 0 Sports and the Final Whistle. So next to him is Michael, the man, the myth, the legend from Week 0 Sports, Michael Barker, and the owner of Workspace Pros. Down below is a man who's never short of words, always glad to express his opinion, Luscion Graves. And then next to him, two-time national champion, two-time SEC champion, and currently on the roster with the Arlington Renegades, Chris Owens. And the true star of the Final Whistle, because Dan's not here to defend it, former Alabama defensive back, Chris James. What's going on, fellas? How y'all feeling?
Roll Tide.
Good, man.
Doing great.
Delayed pause for effect. I like that.
Still processing everything we just saw.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, it's been a hectic. It's been a whirlwind since Wednesday, so it's kind of that breath now. It's all done. The coaches spoke. It's official. It's official now. So yeah, it's kind of that calm after a lot of storm.
Yeah, the biggest concern has been alleviated. We know who is here. We know what direction we're going, but we still are here with bated breath because we don't know who the next departures are. We had several players leave today. There's rumors of more to go and a very key player at that, but we're not going to speculate until we get the definitive answer. Of course, Coach T-Rob is headed to Georgia, as is Tommy Rees. We'll get to that in a little bit later in the show, but let's start out, folks. Our first thoughts initially. The main question that was asked, why are you the guy? And Kalen DeBoer quickly told everybody, look, I'm not Nick Saban. I don't expect to fill his shoes. And I think that's the first thing that we as Alabama fans need to embrace. This isn't Nick Saban. We cannot compare him to Nick Saban at all. We know what he did. It was legendary. Cannot be replicated. Kalen DeBoer has to do it his way. So if we lose the coin toss, don't everybody tear up their link shirts and set fire to your paraphernalia. It's going to be just all right. But Pettey, start us out. Hearing that man, hearing the confidence he exuded, he's a very confident man in himself and his abilities. What was your first take of his press conference today and the way he answered some of the questions thrown at him?
Outside of that one slip up in the Q&A, I didn't feel like he was overwhelmed by the moment. And me and Michael have talked about this a lot. We've all talked about this. One of the things that Alabama made a lot of mistakes after the Bryant era was trying to do the same thing over and over and it not working. He made it real clear. He appreciates the history of Alabama, but he's still got a lot to learn. But he's just a winner, man. And it didn't seem like the moment was too big for him. I loved how he showed appreciation for the past. He showed a lot of appreciation for Saban. And one of the questions we had on our show earlier was, how does Saban being in the facility affect somebody? Spurrier did that once upon a time and it freaked Ron Zook out. But the way he was very open to, yeah, man, I've got the GOAT here. Come, I want you to come once a day and tell me what I'm doing wrong. He's embracing that aspect of it more than letting it be, oh, I don't want this over my shoulder. So it showed no ego, but willing to embrace that, as well as I feel like forge his own path, like he said, it's going to be his process. It's not going to look the same, but the results he expects to be the same. And I think his record speaks for that.
Michael, take the baton, and then we'll go down to Luscion, then Chris, and the other Chris.
Well, from what I saw, the guy says, he's not Nick Saban, but it's clear he read the book, right? So he came out, he started talking about process. He started talking about being explosive, being aggressive. He said something that kind of caught me. It was be in the moment, which sounds a whole lot about like be where your feet are that Saban says all the time. So, I feel like although the methods are going to be a lot different, it seems like we may have a same style of a winner here, I hope. So we'll see.
Absolutely. Luscion, man of not few words, but powerful ones. What was your take?
I felt it was a good first outing. You can't really judge a man on his first appearance, but in saying that, I'd say he did a pretty good job. He didn't like Pettey alluded to, he didn't slip up, but that one time he obviously has a lot of energy. He has a plan, and he seems to have a system that he wants to go by. So yeah, he passes for me. So I'm looking forward to, like he said, the next 3 days and who he surrounds himself by, because like he said, who he surrounds himself by says a lot about him. So we'll see.
Chris Owens, a man who played for Coach Saban. This guy has a lot to live up to, but your initial thoughts in his opening statements about who he is.
Yeah, I think they were pretty good, said all the right things. The big thing for me, having coordinators come in and out of Alabama, was when you input a new coach into a system that's worked for so long, the big thing is taking players' input while also adding your own wrinkles that helps you be successful elsewhere. And so for Coach DeBoer, I think he has a lot of energy. Like Lou said, he's willing to accept input. He'll have Coach Saban with him, so it won't be all by himself. But he doesn't have to do a full renovation. He just kind of has to give everything a little facelift, a little change of scenery for him. Some of the players, they might respond to a different voice. I think it was good, though. I think it was really good.
Chris James, what you got?
Yeah, the first thing that I noticed was how thankful he was, and how much he respected what Coach Saban has built here. And you could tell he truly cares about his players, because towards the end he almost broke down about his guys at Washington. So that tells you right there that he's a player's coach, and he's the type of guy that that you would want to run through a wall for. I love it. The thing that caught my eye was how he spoke on physicality and dominating the lines of scrimmage. That's what you have to do in this league in order to win. You have to be physical and you have to be intentional. So to hear that, instead of because the Pac-12 has a label as finesse ball or whatnot. So to hear him talk about the trenches, that made me all kind of giddy about that. But overall, man, I would give him an A. He knocked that press conference, that presser out of the park. He answered everything thoughtful. He really thought about his answers, and he answered carefully. And when he gave you that roll tide at the end, they let you know that he was all in. he was all in. Greg Byrne kind of said something about it. That he didn't forget the roll tide. But overall, man, I'm excited to see his style and and what he has in store for us. And kind of like what he alluded to with the coordinators, he wanted to give his coordinators, a chance first to see if these are going to be the guys that you would want to coach. I mean, he's a fair guy. He's giving them his guys that's been with him the first opportunity. And I mean, that's awesome to know that the coach that you're working for has your best interest at heart. He's giving you the opportunity to decide, hey, this is where you want to be, or if you want other options. So you can't blame him for looking out for his guys first. I mean, that's who he won with, and that's who he trusts, and that's who he knows. So to kind of value their thoughts and to consider how they would feel about the situation, man, that spoke volumes.
Without question. And Chris, you actually mentioned a very key point to what he was saying. And a lot of Alabama fans were concerned about the trenches, both in the offensive and defensive side. And he's truly an innovator of offense. There's no question about that. That's one of the most exciting parts of his repertoire and what he's going to be bringing to Tuscaloosa. But there's another aspect that Alabama fans need to be very excited about, and that's the offensive line. he had a Joe Moore award-winning offensive line this past season at UW. And what is an area that has just been absolutely atrocious here at Alabama the past 3 years? The offensive line. Something that's been uncharacteristic in terms of history of Alabama. But now we got a guy who's going to right the ship right there. So you got to wonder how quickly would that be in place? What does that mean for Eric Wolford? And how excited are we about that part getting shored up first? We'll start out with the offensive lineman in the group, Chris Owens, and then we'll go to Pettey, Michael, Luscion, and Chris James again.
I'm excited about that part. We haven't had a Joe Moore line since Coach Flood left a few years ago, and that really bolstered us in that championship run, having the development of guys like Landon at center and all of us around him. So having a good coach in that room will be really good, especially for those younger guys. We saw Caden Proctor get better as the season went on, but you really want to see a big jump from year 1 to year 2. Same thing with Jaden Roberts going into his second year as a starter. We'll have to input a new center, so that'll be new for us, a new right tackle. So it'll be a lot of new things coming in, and bringing in a new coach with some new ideas who has a track record of producing a good Joe Moore winning offensive line. That'll be really positive for us.
Absolutely. Pettey, your turn to take the baton, sir.
Look, the proof's in the pudding, and my co-host over here, Michael, and had me watching film this morning, breaking it all down. And look, our offensive line earlier in the year, the litmus test was the Texas. You know, we struggled against Texas. They ate us up. I know we got better as the year went on, like Chris was alluding to just then. But, you know, watching that game, Washington against Texas, man, that offensive line just neutralized Texas and gave them the opportunity to score enough to win. And I'm gonna let Michael go in more to the breakdown, but there's a lot to be excited about. There's a lot to be excited about with the talent that's coming back on Alabama's roster. But B, like Chris said, and it's hard to come over a guy that actually played for Alabama play line, but you know, you can't say more than what he said is what I'm saying. But there is, because I think there's some new schemes that we're going to see that this talent is maybe gives them a chance to excel a little more.
Michael, student of the game, the Peyton Manning of this panel. Pick up where Mr.
I didn't play a lot of line myself, but I did get run over many times because of other people who didn't play it very well. So I've seen from 5 feet behind what it looks like to have a bad line, and I know that can do a lot to your confidence and everything like that. So, you know, when the line's not working together, it seems like everything falls apart right after that. And watching how everything really started with the offensive line especially against the Texas game, but in several of the games that we looked at over the last couple of days, they're pretty imaginative in how they pass off the blocks and the blitzes, but they're always on their guy. And it's not like trickery blocking either. It's not the Malzahn style of move one way and then try to get people tripped up and make it just kind of messy. They straight up block people and they push them out of the way. They took that Texas defensive line and they broke it open. They pushed it. It was great. It was a thing of beauty. I hope we can do something like that.
And listen, we have that dude that's going to be spearheading that, Jaden Roberts, a guy that came into the scene and really saved this offensive line and pretty much kicked everybody else on the butt in terms of continuity. And we took a dramatic turn for the better, and we started being Bama again. We started getting that push. We started getting that lean. So you got to be excited of how much better this makes Jaden Roberts, of course, you know, with the other folks that are on offensive line. But Luscion, how much does this excite you knowing that we're going to have those bullies up front?
I think it's choosing what we want to do in the future of Alabama football. If we want to run the ball, we have to have a dominant offensive line. Now, to see what Washington did with their season and the progression and what they did against Texas, I mean, just think about at the beginning of the season. I don't know if anybody remembers, but I don't think ever remember hearing anything good about Washington or they were going to dominate any aspect of the game this year. And the fact that they did says wonders, and they did it with a lot less, you know, well-known guys and possibly less talented guys. So I'm just excited to see what he can do with what he's got in our locker room. So hopefully these guys respond well. And I think we're going to be very successful next year because the guy brings energy. And in today's game, that's important.
Chris, James, it's your turn, sir. How excited are you knowing we have come back on the offensive line? Of course, we'll have some new faces, mainly at center, but you got young guys like Oluwase Alanine, who was on the field a little bit this season, and he looked like he's going to be the next big thing. But talk to us about what Coach DeBoer is going to do for that group.
I think that he's gonna change it up and make it easier on him. If you paid attention, Penix was getting the ball out quicker, a whole lot quicker. A lot of his throws, he had a quick release, but he didn't hold on to the ball all day like we did, at times in this offense, which led to sacks. So just letting the line know that, hey, just do your part. We're gonna get it out quick. We're not gonna expect you to block somebody 5 or 6 seconds. So that helps out the line, tremendously by knowing that their quarterback isn't going to be holding on to the ball all day. So just along with that and knowing what we have coming back to kind of mix in with DeBoer's scheme, I think it's going to be a beautiful marriage. Because the two most aggressive guys on the line to me were Robertson Booker. I know Latham was the first round pick, but I felt like those guards were pretty doggone aggressive, and they were clearing out space. So I just think that it's going to be a good marriage between them and scheme wise, because you can't tell me that those 5 guys that Washington had up front were higher rated guys than the 5 we had up front. So evidently something was clicking for them that wasn't clicking for us. So just to be able to have the guys behind that here, that's a beautiful thing, man. And like Chris Owens said, we haven't been the same since Coach Flood left.
Oh, without doubt. Okay, so now I see in the chat we're worried about the recruits. We're worried about retaining players. We're seeing people fly out of here. And one of the things that Coach DeBoer talked about was embracing the culture, embracing and inviting Nick Saban to continue to play a role in the program, and inviting former players because he understands just how critical they are. It's not so much, the coaches that are able to drive that success. The former players who built the foundation are very critical, because the players that are on the current roster can identify with those guys better, the guys who actually were on the field doing those things. And he did specifically address first recruiting from within, do what he needs to do to keep the key players who are on this team there. Of course, everybody right now is very concerned about Caleb Downs. He wanted everybody to know he's a man who's going to gain their trust. Keeping them there is first and foremost, and then he moves over to recruiting. How impressed were you guys when he talked about this, and how much confidence have you gained? But also, too, add another caveat, what does he need to do to truly win and in retaining everybody? We'll start with Chris James this time, then Chris Owens, Luscion, Michael, and Daniel Pettey.
Yeah, the impressive part was that he wasn't a deer in the headlights. He had an answer for those questions that everybody had. But the way he can win the locker room over is being like what he says, follow up on everything he says. Like he has to be believable. Like if he says something, that's what it's going to be. That's what was so good about Coach Saban. When he said something, that's what it was. And just stick to your word. And also give all those guys a fair shot of competing. Like, no seniority ball, none of that mess. Like maybe the best man wins the job. And I think that would be a way to keep those guys, and most importantly to the veterans, meet with those guys and let them know how important and how valuable they are, how he values them. You can't just let them come to you. You kind of got to reach out to them. You get what I'm saying? Because right now they're confused, they're young, they're emotional, they're 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old guys. They're emotional right now. So and they're probably at the point to where, hey, they're heartbroken. I have to see it to believe it, So I would reach out to those guys, those key guys, and I like how he said that he had meetings with them last night and this morning with players. That's very like, go ahead and meet them, introduce yourself, and just build a relationship. Start building a relationship with them, and that's the best way. Just to be a player's coach that he is, and I think just his personality alone would definitely help that.
Without a doubt. And, when Malachi Moore announced that he'd be coming back for his 5th year, a lot of us question, why not move on to the NFL? You've provided enough in terms of film to show that you are a valuable draft pick, regardless of whichever round that you'd be going into. Well, it turns out that he's probably going to be one of the key pieces that really keeps this team together. And it looks like that Coach DeBoer has already started working on that relationship with him. So having Malachi back to me is very, very positive. Chris, pick up where Chris James left off and talk a little bit about having those veterans like a Malachi Moore, what that means coming back. And do you buy into what Coach DeBoer said as far as winning people over?
Yeah, I think it's important for him to have a plan, not just a plan on how to keep these players, but how to approach them, making sure like, hey, if we want to keep Isaiah Bond, for example, keep him from leaving, have a plan, let him know, like, this is what we did with Roma Dunze and the guys we had at Washington. And this is how we can help bolster your career too. Like, have a plan for those guys. You can't just say, well, we want you to stay. You're one of our leaders. Like, players kind of know where they stand in the program, but you have to give them some sort of reassurance and be able to follow through with the plan. And a team that you had at Washington that just went to the national championship, that kind of gives you some credibility as to what you're saying. You didn't come from a group of 5 school. So they've seen the results on the field. They can go directly to a few weeks ago and see what happened. And so as long as he has that plan, then he can figure out which guys he wants to target, which guys he wants to bring in from his own program, and which young guys he's even going to try to keep a radar on throughout the spring and into the fall.
I like that. Luscion, pick up where he left off. I know that retaining key players has been a major concern for you. And one of the topics that he addressed was brotherhood, locking arms, and continuing with the culture, getting to know these players and what they are about. How confident are you in him continuing the brotherhood culture and keeping some key players here?
I mean, initially, like, he's saying the right things. So I mean, it's really on the guys in the locker room right now, what they truly came to Alabama for. And I guess this is actually truly a bigger test on what they truly want to do with their careers and lives in college football. Because if they just came to the University of Alabama just to play at the University of Alabama, then maybe some of these guys leaving is actually the right decision for them, and they're not really about the Bama brotherhood and actually playing for the Crimson and White. So I think that there's going to be a positive response, but only time will tell. So I'm going to wait because I'm interested to see how we respond, because that's been a staple at the University of Alabama. Is we always stand up. So I'm interested to see who leads that besides Malachi.
Before we get to the illustrious Michael Barker, we do have a super chat from Jordan Kane, $4.99. We need to feed Justice Haynes and Jam Miller. This could be the same duo as Mark Ingram and Trent Richardson. Love the show, guys. I don't want to get off topic with this circle back to this after Michael and Daniel have had their say. Michael, you've seen a lot of people in your time that have been political savants, kissed babies, shook hands, all that stuff. And you're a great guy who can see through BS. And that's why I like having you on this panel, because you can see through that. What confidence do you have off of what he relayed to the media today in terms of retaining and building the relationships that are there?
Well, what I think should be a good sign that everybody should make you feel a little bit confident is that he didn't come out and just talk about what he was going to do. He talked about what he's been doing, and he didn't say, I'm going to go build relationships. He said, I've been meeting with everybody. He thanked for ages. He just kept thanking people and thanking people and thanking people. Every single sign points to this is a relationship building guy. And he's already been doing the things that I would be doing, or anybody who starts to take over a new organization should be doing. And that's find the key players, find the leadership groups, build the relationship with them first, and get them on your side. It sounds like he's working day and night to do that already. So, you can hear people can talk all day long. It's what they do that matters. And it looks like he's doing the right things. So let's hope that he just continues that. And I think that would be, I can't speak from a player side. I don't know how that coach relationship goes when you lose a coach or something like that. Right. But I do know how it goes in organizations. And it's very important to build relationships with the people that have the pull in that player group. And I think it sounds like that's what he's doing.
Okay. Pettey?
I'll be honest, man. My confidence isn't coming as far as player retention and player development, player recruiting doesn't come so much from what he said today as who he brought with him. And I think he's got a secret sauce in a guy named Courtney Morgan. If you hadn't seen, it's the big bodyguard looking dude that got off the plane with him. but this ain't just a big bodyguard looking dude. And Michael mentioned relationships, man, and Chris can really speak to this, and both Chris's actually. Man, coaches that are special like Saban have that ability to connect with people. And this Courtney Morgan guy, he's a Michigan man, played for Michigan. He was large part of the talent that they brought in that just won that national title. But he had a prior relationship with DeBoer and thought so much of him that when he went to Washington, that was DeBoer's first call. And he gave up Michigan, his team, like, you know, to go build this with DeBoer. And this guy gets it from the player personnel standpoint. That means retention from your players that are there, to bringing in high school kids and not look. We getting that. I can go on a whole roll about that, about the whole money in NIL, but just trust me, this Courtney Morgan guy gets it. Alabama fans are going to get to know him, and that's what gives me confidence that he gets. That he gets what needs to be done on that front. And I think that's going to be the guy that really helps him keep Bama at that standard and bringing in players and keeping the guys around. And much like you said, keeping Malachi Moore is going to be huge, man. He's going to be a huge leader in keeping Alabama at the standard next year to me.
Chris, it's time to start talking about some players. You know, we have Isaiah Bond that's already decided to go in the transfer portal. He's visiting Texas today. Ryan Williams has prematurely decommitted from Alabama. Of course, that may change here shortly, especially if we do hire Ryan Grubb, like I'm hearing that we are going to do. And of course, I want to remind Alabama fans, he was our first choice this past year, but he turned us down to remain at Washington. Of course, that paid off, and ironic how it all works out in the long run. But talk about Jam Miller. Talk about Justice Haynes. You got pretty excited when we saw the super chat, and I know you have to go here shortly, so I want to give you an opportunity to speak on that, especially Bama fans. So they're seeing what they call a finesse offense. Are the running backs still going to get love?
Yes. If you look at their running back, Dylan Johnson, he was a dude.
He was.
He had 50 carries and 1,100 yards. The dude was a workhorse, and I think that if he would have been healthier, you might have seen a different game in the national championship, because he was a shell of himself against Michigan. But don't get it twisted. Just because they throw it around doesn't mean they can't get physical. Washington is a very physical team, because if they weren't physical, Texas would have dominated them in the trenches, and Washington controlled the line of scrimmage both times. The bowl game last year when they played them, and this year. And you look at Texas, they probably had the toughest defensive tackle tandem that we saw all year. So to be able to move those guys and neutralize them and find running lanes, I mean, Justin Haynes ought to be licking his chop. And another thing about it, we are in a day and age that running backs, you don't need 20, 25 carries on your body if you have aspirations of playing in the NFL. You know, 10 to 15 a game, that's plenty enough film to put on film for NFL scouts. Look at Josh Jacobs. I don't even think he averaged 10 carries a game in his career at Bama. Was a first-round pick. So you would rather preferably be in a system where it's that actually throws it a little more, because then teams really not going to stuff the box on you. You have more lanes, more opportunities to kind of shine in the running game, and then it's not going to be so hard on your body, as opposed to not taking a shot at Georgia. But they run their running backs kind of their running backs, they get beat up a lot. They get banged up a lot. And that's kind of how we were, 15, 20 years ago. Our running backs were getting banged up. So to be able to see that, that should make those guys smile as far as that's concerned.
Absolutely. Chris Owens, pick it up. Especially in that running back room, how are we going to use them? And then, two, I guess, do we really need to be concerned about Isaiah Bond leaving and possibly Ryan Williams not coming around? But then again, you flip the script. If what we're reading is true, wide receivers coach Jamarcus Shepard is possibly going to be here, and Ryan Grubb is possibly being here. What does that mean in the grand scheme of things, especially with the talent we have?
Yeah, I agree with Chris. We need to support two running backs. We don't need to give them 20, 25 carries a game. They could be pivotal in the pass blocking game and the receiving game as well, because nowadays running backs aren't just running backs. They're very multiple in our offense. And so you out, Chris? I thought you were saying bye. But Yeah,
Yes,
we
yes.
can support two. I guess so. Yeah, we can support two running backs. And as far as receivers, I personally really want to keep Bond. I feel like he's really talented. I've never been the type of person that worries too much about recruits not coming in because we don't know what recruits are until they get here. I've seen plenty of 5 stars come in and just not live up to the hype. But when you have a proven commodity like that, I think you kind of sell out as much as you can to get him, especially if he's rumored to go to an SEC rival. And so trying to keep those guys in-house as best we can will be good for us. But I think offensively, we become a little more multiple. O-line gets a lot more physical. We can run the ball better situation, like 3rd and short, 4th and short. We stay in front of the chains. We don't have a lot of 2nd and 9s. We live in like the 2nd and 5, 2nd and 4 world. I think we'll be good on offense. And that seems like that's what Washington did all season, and they were successful.
Lou, pick it up, brother. I know that you were, as well as the rest of us, have been really excited about the possibility of Jamarcus Shepard coming in. He's a guy that we've all wanted for our wide receivers coach. And, of course, here on the Bama Standard, we pushed Kevin Norwood. That would have been an excellent hire. But that looks like the reality. How excited do you think this wide receiver group is to get them? And what does that mean as far as taking their play to the next level? And does it make Isaiah Bond take a hard pause on this consideration to leave?
I can't speak on the minds of what's going on in these young people's head because I'm no longer young. I mean, Chris is the youngest guy on this panel. He's really no longer young. So I mean, we can't really attest to what's going on in these young men's heads because it's kind of bonky these days. But I think there should be a level of excitement just off the level of production of what he's done throughout his career, especially this past season, with having all his receivers and his tight ends eat throughout the passing game. I think it also speaks numbers to me because he actually said something in his press conference when he said something about utilizing his players. And I think that's something that our offense has gotten away from these last couple of years with our personnel group. We're not properly utilizing a lot of our receivers and primarily our tight ends. I feel like could be used in a lot of different ways. So he gives me a lot of excitement with who he brings with him, could potentially bring with him on the offensive side of the football, especially through the passing game. But like Chris alluded to, the running game was big too. And we have, I'd say, heightened ceiling, better running back talent with the guys we have in our locker room. And they're younger and they got more energy and they don't have any tread on their tires. So I think explosive plays will be seen. And the fact that we have, 2-3 healthy backs will also pay it forward in the later part of the SEC because we did add some tougher teams. It's going to be a little bit of a tougher schedule. So having those running backs in a scheme where they're not getting hammered and having an offensive line that can actually be physical throughout the entire season is going to be a catalyst in our success for what's coming up in the future.
Isaiah Bonds aside, Michael, you're a guy that does not believe in sugarcoating. It's not in your wheelhouse. And you've watched Jalen Milroe grow and evolve this year, but there are some things, if we're all honest, that need to be shored up, need to be kind of cleaned up. He grew a lot. He matured as a player, truly gritty guy, awesome character guy, no question. But he had trouble with the underneath routes, the short throws, reading defenses at times, making adjustments at the line to change the protections. How confident are you in possibly Ryan Grubb, but more importantly, Kalen DeBoer and his development and possibly getting him to turn the corner that we all need him to turn, especially with this schedule coming up, as Luscion just alluded to? What is your head like as far as Jalen Milroe's progression under this staff?
Well, anybody can do it. I believe in anybody. That kid seems very determined. I mean, if he believes he can do it, then I sure want him to try. Having said that, it's a big caveat here. If you've watched this offense, and people say it's the air raid and stuff like that, I kind of disagree with that a little bit. It's not really an air raid style offense at all. It has more Kiffin and Sark kind of signatures than anything else you'll ever see in there, especially with eye candy motion and the ability to make defensive backs have to shift who they're covering and make a decision who they're covering at the very last second before they snap the ball. And a lot of that comes from pre-snap being able to manage the pre-snap game. And that's where I believe Jalen Milroe had the biggest efficiency this year. Everything up until before the ball snapped, it didn't seem like he really had that together. And that was shown a lot of times when we would run directly into the numbers. We would run directly into oncoming blitzes a lot of times. And if I'm a running back and I see this offense and these guys running into open space and running, people saying this is a finesse offense. I don't know. The guys, they go under center and go I formation sometimes and jam it up the middle with the fullback against that Texas defense. You know what I mean? So if I'm a running back, I'm licking my chops in this thing.
Absolutely.
From the wide receiver standpoint, okay, DeBoer, he's a former wide receiver. That's his game. You know what I mean? If you're a quarterback, you like to see your coach be a quarterback. If you're a cornerback, you're a defensive back, you like Saban being your coach, just like right off the bat, right? So I think these receivers ought to be excited too.
Without question. Pettey, piggyback off of Michael, you can go the route of Jalen Milroe's progression because you studied it this entire year, but we're also looking at Isaiah Bond and Ryan Williams. Talk to us about this. What is having Kalen DeBoer here in terms of maybe keeping guys on board like Isaiah or Ryan, or just talk about Milroe. What are your thoughts?
Well, I'll touch on all of it. From the receiver standpoint, you've got to be able. You would think he would be able to show the production, and if it doesn't get those kids' attention, I don't know what does. If you watch the routes they run, the route tree is awesome. The double routes. I mean, he's going to get you open. But like you said, Michael said, for the Bama fans that were wanting Kiffin and Sarkisian, you're going to get a taste of it with this guy. He's all about mismatches all over the field, and he created 2 1,000-yard receivers. And to the guys that love the running game, I mean, the Kiffin Sarkisian offenses are built off the run to open up the pass. And again, he had a 1,000-yard rusher. That guy was a stud. So I don't know how it couldn't give Bond, Paul, or Williams to stop and say, hey, do I really want to go play with Peyton Thorne and his lame-ass noodle arm? Oh, sorry. Or do I want to go – and even if it's not Milroe, it very well, Milroe I will get to that next, but there's a whole room of quarterbacks that have pedigree up at Alabama, whereas Peyton Thorne's the guy. And that what's the kid they got from Arkansas, Walter White? I mean, as long as he's not cooking the blue, he'll be all right and stay out of jail. But like they don't have anything in that quarterback room. So the Williams thing's really from the Saraland kid. I don't see how it couldn't give him pause. But yeah, they would be crazy not to want to step back and look and say, hey man, especially Bond's already here. Why go somewhere else? You're going to have a coach that can definitely develop you for the next level. And then on the Milroe side, man, coaches like this that have this offensive, that mind, the Sarkisians, the Kiffins. Look what Kiffin did while Blake was a running back for some of his career at Alabama, and then Kiffin turns him into a 4,000-yard passer almost. Yeah, I will say this. I want to see competition. I want to see, and if Milroe's the best guy for the job, but I do think this puts Milroe in a better spot. We'll see. He's going to have his opportunity to become the man next year.
Did we finally get the, factory reset that we've all been begging for? Towards the end of his career, just call what it is. Coach Saban was loyal to a fault, sometimes to a detriment. How excited are we about the possibility of really getting a reset, and there's going to be some real competition, Luscion?
I mean, like I said, at the end of the season, there need to be a factory reset. I mean, I didn't mean like a complete factory reset, like what really happened. I apologize if I spoke that into existence. It's not what I meant in any way, shape, or form, but here we are. So, yeah. It's going to be interesting. It's kind of like you can't really put too much stock into what you're hearing, and everybody just kind of needs to take a pause right now. And I feel like everybody's kind of being emotional a little bit, including myself. We don't know what's going to happen, but we should have confidence in, we hired a guy that, seems to have a very competent system, and he's got a support staff. And I think that's the most important thing in today's world, that he has a system behind him that has been successful throughout his process. And the fact that we alluded to earlier that he mentioned the process, it should mean something. So I'm not really sure. I'm kind of just going to be patiently waiting. That's my aspect of it right now.
Chris Owens, where do you stand on that? You're a guy that when you played, there was competition still going on. You had to earn it, and there wasn't the coach's favorites. How much of advantage does Alabama take into this next season with guys having to actually compete for their jobs again?
In my mind, in a way, it feels like if a player were to transfer almost. Like, let's say you've been in the program for about a year or two. You never got any real traction to really get on the field. Now you've got a brand new regime to come in, and they're looking at you with a fresh scope. They want to see how you play, how you work. Maybe to the coaching staff before, you might have been like a third, fourth level player. But to those guys, they just come in and see the information you've given them now, and you're suddenly like second string, maybe competing for a first string spot. And so, like Lou said, sometimes the factory reset is really good. It gives those players new life. Maybe they feel like, well, I really love the school, but I want to get some new eyes on me. Well, now you have new eyes on you and you're at the same school. So now you have a level of comfort, but you also have like a spark lit under you so you can compete again. So I think we'll find some guys that maybe we weren't thinking about just because we hadn't seen them much. And maybe some of those older guys that had a bigger role, maybe they kind of not fizzle all the way out, but they may take a step back just because there's some younger guys who've actually proven themselves to the coaching staff.
Michael, you were shaking your head to a lot of what Chris was saying. Where do you stand on this? And then Pettey will wrap this part up.
I think, it gives them a chance. Like he said, anybody who's gotten disheartened with their playing time, it gives them a chance to, show what they got again. Anybody who's already feels comfortable and maybe getting a little complacent, they got a fire under their ass again. This reminds me of when Saban came in and we really hadn't had that, just outright competition at every position for a while. So it was really exciting. And, I think it's going to not only be good for the team, but it'll be good for the fans. It'll give us something to talk about during those months before football comes in. So pretty exciting.
Yeah. Pettey, wrap it all up in a bow.
Yeah, I just echo what all these guys say, man. What made Alabama great, what made guys like Chris great was competition, was beast. I mean, 5-star beast competing against 5-star beast, steel sharpening steel. And I like that. Again, I maybe complacency, whatever you want to call it, because it didn't seem, that pull the quarterback at halftime to put in the freshman, those type of moves. But yeah, man, I'm ready. I want to see competition. It's what made it great to begin with, outside of bringing in a bunch of freaking awesome guys and an awesome coach. But there was competition once all that was put together. So,
all right, let's get to the main topic. This was one of the things I definitely wanted to address. And going into setting this up, I didn't realize how important it was going to be, and that's retaining staff. Tyler Westra kind of provided a great segue here. Any news on coordinators and all that? Well, that is a great question, and I think we all kind of went into a panic mode today when we got the news of defensive back coach Travaris Robinson departing for Athens, Georgia, to be the co-defensive coordinator, who's the third co-defensive coordinator on that team. I don't understand that appeal there, but he's also the safeties coach. And one of the things I felt like that was going to lead to the success of DeBoer was retaining key staff members to keep the team intact and continue that machine that is our recruiting classes. We're number 2 in the country right now overall for recruiting. And Travaris Robinson was very instrumental in that. Well, he's no longer here. So we're kind of in a panic. I'm going to go ahead and say, to keep things level or get fans really excited, the current team, potential players really excited, we have a guy on staff right now who needs to be promoted from within. And if you don't know who he is, it's Clinton Dix, a guy that is a legend at Alabama. He understood the process. He lived the process. Having a name like that on the field, a guy that can develop the players, because he was one of the best to ever do it. He can actually go out to homes and basically just knock on the door. They see him there. They're going to say, okay, I'm coming with you. I know what you did. I know what kind of player I can become because of what I witnessed with you. Guys, let's talk about retaining key staff members. Give me your thoughts on possibly being promoted. And then we still got Robert Gillespie, who's there, who's very important. Freddie Roach, who has a very key role and really elevated his level of coaching this year. How important is it that we keep these guys? Do we keep them? And then we'll kind of get to talk about some potential coordinators. Start us out, Chris Owens, then Luscion, Michael, and Pettey.
Yeah, what you said about HaHa is that's really important. You like you said, you can go into a room, not as much as like Coach Saban, but you have a very credible name to play successfully in the league and in college, and you can step into and say, "Hey, I know how to develop DBs. I was developed. I went through that process." And so having somebody like that on the staff really gives you instant credibility. Coach G, we've seen what his work has done. He's been magnificent, one of the coolest coaches I was around while I was on campus. And he doesn't just interact with running backs. He talks to everybody in the building. And having someone like that, so where like if I'm an O lineman, I'm a D lineman, I just want to go chop it up with him in the hallway, he's there and he can go in the rooms and really light them up. And he has a lot of great insight. Same with Roach. Roach he's been really good to me and a lot of people that I know. And he has a lot of years in the SEC, a lot of years at a very high level. And so when you ask about retaining coordinators, I think it's important to keep some of those guys around. You don't want to have the full staff of just guys you've had around. You obviously have to make some changes, but implementing your new guys and keeping some of those old guys from the other regime kind of helps create a blend of new tradition that we want to create, but still keeping all the factors that helped us be successful to this point.
Luscion, waiting to hear your answer on this. Staff retention, especially a few key members, is very important. And we all, like I said, pressed that panic button. Matter of fact, we probably slammed it down when T-Rob left the building. But where are you on this? And what are some suggestions that you have for Ryan Grubb going forward in terms of making these moves?
I mean, I think you have to, like when you're cooking something and you have a great recipe and you don't have the right ingredients to reciprocate that recipe, you're not exactly going to hit your factory reset. You're going to take certain things from that recipe, but you're going to upgrade on it. So I think what Chris alluded to and everybody's been saying, like it's a catalyst. Like you have two guys that not only were successful that worked through the process, you have two guys that coach players successfully through that process. And they have a relationship with the Alabama community and most importantly, the SEC, which is going to be very, very important to recruiting. Now, I understand the NIL, with the whole Courtney Morgan situation, that's going to be a key too. But you can't count out the fact that two guys that have, been successful through the program and the process have relationships in the SEC. So I think, it's going to be interesting. So. Yeah,
no doubt, Michael. We've got a lot of things that we've talked about here. Promoting HaHa, retaining people. What you got?
Well, you guys have covered it pretty steady. I would like to see those two guys in particular stay because they're on the defensive side of the ball. HaHa because Saban being that defensive back coach, love to have some of that stay around because it's clear that DeBoer is an offensive guy. His defenses are they're formidable, but it seems like he's definitely offensive minded. So I would like to see the offense side pretty much, his guys, and maybe keep a few of the relationship style people on defense, and not necessarily the top brass, right? But the role players like we're talking about here, and maybe move them up higher and give them their opportunity. That would go a lot to build relationships, is to give some of those guys we all love another opportunity there, right?
No doubt. Pettey, finish it up, brother.
Man, you kind of this is the point where this is the hard thing to do, especially when you've got relationships that are already in the building. And Chris has been a great example of this. There's guys in there, but this is the new guy. And at some point, you got to put your full trust. This is the guy we hired to do his thing. If he wants to bring his guys in, you got to trust that's the right call. But I also do think this is kind of make or break for a lot of coaches. Chris has been on this, where coaches come in, you get new guys, there's got to be a right mix. And when you're coming from the Northeast to the South, and there's relationships are such a vital thing. Robert Gillespie is absolutely considered one of the most dynamic recruiters in the South. He's very well known. He trust me, if he gets let go, there's going to be a line of coaches from Oxford to Georgia to whatever to come wrap him up. So, I do think keeping some guys like that around, especially for retention right now, is very vital when you're coming from a completely different area of the country. But again, new coach, you got to trust him, man. You've given him the keys to the kingdom. You got to hope if he does make these decisions to bring in his guys, you got to trust that it's the right call.
Absolutely. And having those key guys here is very critical in building relationships, especially with Southern boys. Let's call it what it is. He's from the Northwest Coast. Does he know what a grit is? Does he drink sweet tea? Does he call soda pop? Anybody calls it pop probably shouldn't be trusted, but we got kind of a cultural barrier.
I think you're describing our boy Saban there, buddy.
but he's a unicorn. Brian Harsin was front there, man.
Well, apples. I think apples don't.
Hey, talk about not speaking something into existence.
Okay, that was my bad.
Yeah, man, come on, Justin.
As the time winds down here, we definitely got to talk defense. There's no question what our new coach DeBoer, brings to the table in terms of offense and how dynamic this could possibly be, which excites us all, especially with the possibility, if things turn out to be true, having Ryan Grubb and wide receiver coach Jamarcus Shepard. But defense, they would do things a little bit different here in the South. SEC defenses, and it is true, it just means more. So this is where I feel like he really needs to win over the fan base, hit that home run higher. And I'm hearing some things. I'm hearing some names that are trending right now. And if we lock in some of these candidates that I'm being told, that those are home run hires, and that definitely will get the confidence of the Alabama fan base. One of those is Iowa defensive coordinator Phil Parker. We saw what he was able to do with the Hawkeyes. There's no offense over there in Iowa, but there was a lot of defense, and people regretted stepping on the field against him. Another, Jim Leonard, a name that was circulating last year, along with Jeremy Pruitt before everything shook out, and we got Kevin Steele, which congratulations on your retirement, Coach Steele. And I'm gonna go ahead and throw out another name too, a name of a former Alabama defensive lineman who is actually throwing his hat into the arena. This is breaking news because I had a conversation with him today. Nick Gentry, defensive lineman from the University of Alabama, three-time national champion, wants to apply. If we get him on the staff in any capacity, that's a huge win. Defensive coordinator, most definitely, defensive line, linebackers, what have you. The guy, if you've never heard him talk, very passionate. He don't play, and he definitely follows the Saban mantra. So let's talk defense, guys. How important right now, given the names I just mentioned, is it to hit a home run higher? Start us out, Pettey, Michael, Luscion, Chris. How confident are we that Coach DeBoer is going to shore up this side?
You got to feel good about it. Look, man, and I know this kind of contradicts what we just talked about coming from the Northeast, and that really contradicts it. We're just kind of more hoping, hey, how does he make that transition? But when you put that A on your hat and that A on your chest, it gets a little bit easier to recruit, just a little bit easier and that involves coaches too. So look, man, there's a lot of, I'm sure, young up and coming defensive coordinators that would love to come cut some teeth with the talent that's in that Alabama locker room. So I think it's very important, but I also think there's a good chance he makes the right call. And again, I hate that me and Michael were talking. I don't remember a time where Alabama's just had a bad defense. I mean, I know we can get into Pete Golden and all that stuff, but those defenses were bad relative to Alabama standards, but they've never just had a bad defense at the Capstone. Maybe.
Michael,
Michael might disagree, but.
No, that's a great point. I mean, even in the years when I went to college during the Mike's era, we were still number one defense almost every year. I mean, we were up there. Remember, we played the Texas Tech Air Raid one year as the number one offense versus the number one defense, and we beat them 10-7 or something like that, right? So, it's. I don't want to say that it's built in, but I almost feel like defense is going to be built in for us. We're going to have a good defense. Now, will it be elite? That's what's out there to be seen. And I hope that he can land that home run splash higher that I feel like he is on offense to make sure that our defense is strong. And another thing about his offensive style that helps that is that he doesn't run like just 100 miles a minute. You know what I mean? It's more methodical a little bit. It gives the defense a little bit time to work in a lot of cases. So I don't think he's as, defense unfriendly as some of these offensive coaches are today. So hopefully that'll help him in pulling that in. But, again, we'll see. I don't know. I'm very anxious about this.
Luscion, I know you're most anxious. The defensive side of the ball is what you are passionate about. We've had hours of conversation about this. Did Kalen DeBoer get the home run here? How are we feeling? And talk to me about some of these candidates we're talked about.
I think he has to. I think this is probably his most important hire because, as everybody alluded to, Alabama, we do defense down here. I mean, yes, we've had explosive offenses in the last couple of years, but we are predominantly a defensive powerhouse. And I think it is very, very, very important, if not the most important thing, to reestablish that energy. I think we took a step forward in doing that this year, as opposed to what we've been doing the years prior under I don't even want to say his name, but y'all know who I'm talking about. I think if he gets the right hire in here, they bring the right energy, get the right position coaches around him, I think the defensive dynasty can come back. But we got to wait and see who he hires. Like you said, Phil Parker, he's solid in what he's developed up at Iowa. I haven't watched many of their games, but I've looked into their numbers. They play sound football. They don't let people score. As far as Jim Leonard, a guy that I know we were looking into last year before we hired Coach Steele. So obviously we've already done our research on that guy. And another name I'm hearing that has been lightly thrown around is Glenn Schumann. And I think if you want a guy that is inept to stopping the run, which Alabama has, I'm not gonna say struggle with, but hasn't been as dominant in. I think that Glenn Schumann is a guy that is been under multiple guys that are defensive gurus in stopping the run. And especially what he's been able to do in recruiting with bringing in 5-star linebackers that, and progressing them into football players, because they've had back-to-back years of having true freshmen come in and take that Mike linebacker position over. So that just is a testament to, some of his coaching and, what he could bring back to the University of Alabama, because he did graduate from here. So I think that also would be big in, keeping the energy alive. So it's going to be interesting to see. The defensive coordinator, like I said, is going to be the main thing that I'm going to be looking for, and I know everybody else is interested in.
Chris Owens, you went against some of those defenses, so you understand firsthand what it takes to play defense at the University of Alabama, because you were responsible for trying to stop those guys. So how critical is it in the success of Kalen DeBoer, his first year, that he really hits a home run here?
I think it's especially important because of the amount of guys we're losing, whether it's to the draft or to the portal. I feel like we need to bring someone in that's really good at developing talent and has a really good scheme that a lot of players can fit into because of the amount of people we've lost. I don't want to say it's going to be a young defense, but there's going to be a lot of guys in a lot of new spots, whether it's a depth position or new starting position. I know we got a lot of our D-line coming back. But there's going to be some positions to be filled. And so we need somebody who can come in, evaluate what we have, take that talent and find their strengths, find their weaknesses, and put everyone in the best position possible.
I want to give a quick shout out here to Faith Thomas, watching y'all from Los Angeles. And I think the new coach has a chance, as long as the culture he creates is consistent, without question. And again, I do want to remind Alabama fans too, he's not Nick Saban. I know this is easier said than done, because we've all been Bama fans and players, Chris, through different eras. And in any of the eras, the guy who's there right then was compared to the previous legend. Even when Daniel and Michael and I were at Alabama, any coach that was there, we went through 5, right?
7.
All compared to Paul Bear Bryant. Gene Stallings too. Gene Stallings did his thing. But then now we got Nick Saban, the next great, the GOAT. Bama fans, we cannot compare Kalen DeBoer to Nick Saban. It's hard to say, and it's easier said than done. But unless we develop that mindset, we're going to be in for a lot of problems and a lot of anxiety. And of course, we here at the Bama Standard will appreciate it because it's going to draw engagement. But we're going to have to save ourselves a lot of grief.
I liked it. He gave what Justin said. Look, man, let's not do what we did for 2.5 decades after the Bear. Let's not be dumb again. Let's appreciate what happened, which was the greatest run in the history of college football for the last 17 years. But let's also appreciate that, hey man, this is a new day, and it may look a little different, be a little different. But he gave me some Steely Dan vibes in that the Q&A. You call Alabama. What do you cut the winners of the world? Got a name? He said, "Winners win." And that's what what did he say? Winners win because that's what winners do. God, man, that's already the first Alabama T-shirt. Winners win because that's what winners. It's like, hey, he's got a little Steely in him. So
yeah, maybe a little Yogi Berra too.
Yeah, a little Yogi, but yeah, man, let this guy be himself because there's never going to be another GOAT.
Speaking of the GOAT, I want to remind everybody who's in our live chat, watching live, hey, we have 944 y'all right now. Thank you so much for being on here with us. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if you like what you're seeing and like what you're hearing. Listen, we got a lot of great content coming your way, but the most important content coming your way Tuesday, 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern, right here on the Bama Standard Network, the Nick Saban Tribute Show. We're going to have former players come on, a couple right now who've been solidified. We got Trent Richardson, Courtney Upshaw, Reggie Ragland, DJ Fluker, and we're going to have Slade Bolden. So y'all definitely want to come by and check that out. It's basically just sitting back, relaxing, hearing their stories. I'm sure we'll have a lot of great ones. If y'all missed Bo Scarborough's stories from the other day, please go back and check that out. It was definitely worth your while. So I want to get to a couple of super chats. We got talking a lot here, so we kind of missed y'all, but we are very thankful. We got Matthew Miller, $4.99. You guys will be fine. You have to have realistic standards. DeBoer is fantastic X's and O's guy. Also, thank you for buying Hook'em. There's always that guy.
Yeah. Hey, glad to have some Texas fans in here too. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Hey, we're gonna be experiencing them in full blast this fall. Don Parker, $5. Thank you all for doing this today. Still processing that the GOAT has retired, but a little more optimistic. Sorry, the Mississippi and me is having problems about Coach DeBoer. Let's see what happens. Yes, let's see what happens. Give the man a chance.
Hey, Justin,
the process. Yeah.
Good news is Coach Saban's not leaving Tuscaloosa. Like he's
not.
He's already in Bryant Denny Stadium.
Yeah, Coach DeBoer's already said that he's been picking his. He wants to get at least one thing a day from him, even though he's probably going to get 10, like he says. So it's not like he's leaving; he's going to be there.
Yes, fans remember that Saban's fingerprint will be on this as well. And it's not just going to be he skips town and goes and lives life on his many beachfront properties or going to ESPN, being a game day analyst. He's going to be involved in one way or another. And I believe he had an exit plan in place that he's giving to Coach DeBoer, and it's going to be implemented. Now we get to see the fruit of that. Now, thank you again for everybody. Hit that like and subscribe button. We've been here over an hour, so we need to kind of wrap things up. I want to remind everybody tonight, if y'all really want to know how Kalen DeBoer is going to be doing things to the capstone, we got a special episode of Teague's Take, 8 p.m. Central, 9 p.m. Eastern, right here. We got film study breaking down what Washington does, so you get to see firsthand what we're going to expect. Most importantly, are we going to run the damn ball? We're going to figure out what a Kalen DeBoer offense and defense will look like in Tuscaloosa. Definitely check us out tonight. That's George Teague, yes, the legend, the strip, the living legend that is. Him and his son, JT, do a fine job. Show them support tonight. But let's go around the room. Let's promote what we have, our platforms, social media, and all that good stuff. So all of you who are here can show support. Daniel Pettey, start us out. Then go to Michael. Of course, Michael, you're our sponsor. So pop your business. Then we'll go down to Luscion, Chris Owens.
Daniel did such a good job yesterday. I'm going to let him do that. So
gosh, dog, you're going to put the pressure on me up front of the boss man.
Right.
Are we going?
Yeah, we're going. Okay.
Yeah. Hey, I'm Daniel Pettey. I'm with Week Zero Sports. We just popped out another show this morning. I'm also a host or a guest host, or I guess I'm a host now on The Final Whistle Tuesday nights, 8 o'clock Central, or what is it? 7 o'clock Central, 8 o'clock Eastern. It's late.
8 Central, 9 p.m. Eastern.
There we go. I'm
You in
glad.
time zone? You in time zones, Pettey?
I thought I got them fixed. I just show up, but no, I'm on the final whistle with those guys, and it been going pretty good. Week zero, but also again, check us out at weekzerosports.com. We got a show coming out today. We also do stuff with Justin. We may get our Saturday show back going that brought old Luscion in on the first place, but. Yeah, and I'm also with Michael. He's my boss man. He owns Workspace Solutions. We're at workspacepros.com. Man, let us be your digital online presence. We help your business grow any way you need. Marketing, SEO, content writing, web design, podcast. Man, just help me out. Look, if there's anything you need to help your business grow online or just help your business grow, we're your guys, man. We work with these guys. And like I said, we like to say the Bama standard. We got the Workspace standard too, and it's excellent. So check us out at workspacepros.com. Let us work with you guys, man. And again, check us out at Week Zero Sports. We're Bama, but we're little, we're all over the place. We talk gambling. We may even talk a little Ole Miss, but it's the SEC. We really like to make fun of, Auburn and all those teams you hate. So come join us.
Yeah, we spread it out. We even talk about other games outside of the SEC sometimes, which I know is like all crazy. Our last episode that we recorded this morning will be out tomorrow morning. I just want to correct Daniel right there. So you can go to weekzerosports.com and check out Apple Podcasts or whatever. We've got a button right there for you for all your favorite podcast stations. So you can go subscribe to that for us. We don't put our shows out but about once a month, sometimes more, sometimes less, but we promise you it'll always at least be crazy.
Luscion, you got a pretty popular show here on this network. Let's talk about it, how they can find you on social media.
My Twitter handle's underneath me, Luce21 on Twitter, Luscion Graves on Facebook and Instagram. I'm also one of the hosts on the most exciting show on the Bama Standard with my main man Pettey up there, and Chris is on there too, and obviously what I like to call the overseer, the main guy, the guy behind the curtain, the Wizard of Oz, Mr. Justin Riley, also on there too. Yeah,
hardest working man on YouTube.
Hardest working man. This dude's got his thumb speed is crazy. I'm telling you, it's amazing. Also, my putting on the fine touches on my show, so look for that in the next couple weeks. And Bama Nation, stay faithful. You know what I'm saying? We're going through a transition. It's going to be a fun ride. I have every confidence in the world that they made the right decision. And, I got a serious vibe right now from Saban. He kind of reminded me of a former NBA coach that took an owner position and had a very, very successful run. And I kind of think that's where Saban's going. He's still going to be around like everybody said. So Saban as an owner should really, really scare people. Roll Tide.
A little Pat Riley vibes, huh?
Yes, sir.
Chris Owens, you're about to be very busy here. The UFL was going to be launching in just a few months. We got another draft coming up Monday. So talk to the folks about that, where you are right now, if you're living under a rock, because some folks may not be aware, and how they can find you on social media.
Yeah, like Justin said, I'll be in the UFL. Our first game is against the USFL champion Birmingham Stallions. So that'll be exciting. Get to play against some of my friends I've only practiced with, and it'll be kind of fun. It'll be fun. Other than that, I'm going to be in Dallas, Texas, freezed in because we don't know how to prepare the roads for a winter storm. They're shut the whole city down. So I'll be here until later this month when I go to Orlando for WWE Royal Rumble.
Ooh,
nice.
Here we go. I love that.
Nice.
Are you in it? Are you going to be? I mean, are you they pulling you in? Is this your call up?
Cameo?
No. I'm gonna go down to Orlando with Amari Kite. We'll drive up to Tampa, go to find some good seats. Chill.
Nice.
So you're saying that you have not been in NXT the past several months?
Man, I wish, man. Man, that'd be fun. But no, I don't think my body can take those type of bumps. I don't want to get thrown off a Hell in a Cell.
I was about to give you a push. Triple H, if you're listening, this might be your next guy.
Yeah.
I mean, Chris, we do need someone to eventually dethrone the tribal chief, Roman Reigns. Is it going to be his cousin, The Rock, which that's coming up pretty soon?
You know what's funny if he did, I could see him doing something like trying to promote the league even more and bringing the championship belt around for like the first couple home games for the UFL and just kind of promoting it like, hey, I'm WWE champion. Just took down the tribal chief. Oh, yeah, by the way, come watch the UFL. Right. I can see him doing something. He's a genius. He's a genius.
It's marketing for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, marketing is not his weakness for sure. I want to remind everybody we have another sponsor. That's Title Towel, or better yet, Whitwell Sports. Listen, as we know as Bama fans, the season never truly ends. We're always looking at recruiting. We're looking at the off-season A-Days coming up within the next few months, and then we'll be right back in the swing of things with summer workouts, fall camp, and all that. But listen, go to whitwellsports.com today for your Title Towel. And because they love us so much, we have our own promo code. Enter standard, and you get a nice little discount to get your Title Towel. Again, visit whitwellsports.com today. And as far as me, yes, I'm on the Bama Standard, our flagship show, which is every Tuesday night, 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern. We have quite a legendary panel. It's an entertaining panel for sure. It's me, Marvin Constant, Bo Scarborough, comedy legend, and the star of the show. He just paid me to say that. Steve Brown, and the super analyst to stars who keeps Paul Feinbaum employed, Stephen M. Smith. But listen, we're going to be busy this whole off season. We'll be covering the UFL, be talking to Chris Owens, as well as Bo Scarborough throughout the UFL, keeping y'all updated. I'm looking forward to seeing Chris play against Reuben Foster. My TV will be on for that.
Never done it in a game, only in practice. And I was like 18 years old, and Reuben was Reuben. So it's gonna
be if you get him one good time coming across, you got any words for him?
Absolutely not. No. I'm just going to turn around and thank you, sir. Turn around.
Hey, see you next time, buddy.
Chris, if you do that, be careful. If you hit him too hard, he falls on you. That Newport might fall out and get in your eye. So
I'm just going to walk back to the huddle, get ready for the next play.
Well, that's going to do it for us here at the Bama Standard. Again, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button on your way out. If you're watching the replay, show us some love in the comment section. We need to know how you feel about Kalen DeBoer, his press conference today, and your confidence going forward. And again, check out T's Takes at night at 8 p.m. Central, 9 p.m. Eastern, and we'll see you next week. Roll Tide, everybody.
Roll Tide.
Roll Tide.